Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Glad you could make it. Happy Friday. Hi to everybody in the chat. So, as I always do, I will let everybody know right up front. I'm going to be spending the first part of the show answering questions that were submitted ahead of time by my wonderful Patreon patrons and channel members. So, if you are with us in the live chat right now and you have a question for me, or you were planning on uh, being generous and throwing in a super chat or something like that, anything that you want me to take notice of, if at all possible, please hold on to it until I get through the patron and member questions. And then I will be happy to spend the rest of the show hanging out with the chat. Hi, Carlisle. Good to see you. So, with that out of the way, let me go to the Patreon and member questions. And here we go. The first one is hi, Boxy Brown. And now I'm seriously not looking at the chat anymore. The first patron and member question comes from Christian Dalgio, who says, "Hey, Steve, first, great content. You got your view on politics in the U.S. is very appreciated. I have a few friends in the U.S., and you helped me to not worry so much about Trump. I really hope Kamala wins the election. Here's my question. Is Elon Musk just as dumb as Trump? Because it seems so from the outside. Keep up the great work you do here. Hugs and love from Denmark, EU." Well, thank you very much for the kind words and for the hugs. Um, it's I would think twice about saying that anyone was as dumb as Trump, but I mean, Elon's definitely up there or down there, I guess, depending on how you how you reckon the list. No, he's not. For someone who initially built his reputation with the public for being some kind of genius, some kind of visionary inventor, prophet of humanity, showing the way to the future, Elon is not that smart at all. Um, I don't know if he's as dumb as Trump, but he's not nearly as smart as he presents himself to be, pretends to be, or desperately wants everybody to think he is. And that much is painfully apparent if you just pay any amount of attention to him. Adam Winkleman, hey, Steve to the Shives. What can you recommend to start recording audio and video? I know I had mic issues with the Hangout, so what do you use? I have a Yeti X and a Shure MVX plus a PreSonus audio interface. I'm used to recording guitar and editing podcasts, but recording is new to me. Tips, tricks, hallucinogens? Well, I have this right here is a Blue Yeti. That's the one that's my sort of go-to mic on the computer. And then and then just like a Logitech high definition webcam that I'm streaming on right now. And for the other videos, for the non-live stream or non-webcam videos, I have a Rode sort of shotgun mic that I use to record audio when I'm recording scripted videos, that I set up on a pole and sort of just have it as like a boom mic over my head. Um, that captures audio much better than if it was mounted on the camera, which is usually several feet away. And also sometime more recently, when I've been doing like the sort of off the cuff daily videos, like one that just went live about 15 minutes before this live stream started. I've been recording those video on my phone, and for the audio, I use this thing, which is a Zoom external microphone that plugs into the charger port on my phone, and it records some really nice audio, and again is much better than the built-in microphone on the phone. Um, but I would recommend just decide what you want to do and what kind of recording you want to do. Whether if you want to do webcam or something on your phone, or if you have a standalone camera like a DSLR or something you're going to record video on. Um, Decide what kind of videos you're going to do and what kind of video recording you're going to do, and then tailor your audio setup to that, and just do your own research on the internet to find out like what is the best sort of equipment to use for the kind of recording that you want to do, because a lot of people use a lot of different stuff, and I have changed my setup many times over the years to try different things or to do something that I think will be better than what I was doing before. So it's, it can be a very fluid thing. But for this is just a blue Yeti connected to my computer with a USB cable. So no, and I've never had, as far as live streaming and stuff, I've never had any trouble with it, unless there was like a setting issue that was my fault. The lover of Lower Decks coming in hot. I know how you feel about Lower Decks, but as someone who loves the jokes, Easter eggs, and references, I'm curious to know if there's anything the final season could do in your eyes that would redeem the show to your standards. I just hope that they all end up working on the bridge at the night shift or something as a fun final gag. And I'm hoping that the reported live action series with Tawny Newsome has the same kind of comedy, or maybe Avenue 5 level humor. P.S. Also, sorry, last Ask Away I said 3 to 4 per quarter for new content. I meant 3 to 4 per year. I changed the sentence mid-thought and forgot to correct it. Whoops. 3 to 4 per quarter would be insane, as you said. Yeah, 3 to 4 per year is a lot, is much more reasonable, I think. There's nothing that it could do to redeem itself, because this is the last season, and it's been the show that it's been for 4 years. So, I mean, there are things it could do to make the last season better if they actually decided to do a show instead of just coming up with excuses to make references and throw out Easter eggs and do like pandering fan service type bits. If they decided to actually write a proper comedy show with, jokes that are funny in their own right, not just theoretically funny because they're supposed to remind you of something from another Star Trek show, that, often aren't even presented with any kind of commentary or take. It's just, remember this. If they just stopped doing that and wrote like a proper comedy show that actually made me laugh more than maybe once or twice per 10 episodes, that would be great. Having just seen the trailer today for the new season, I'm not expecting that. And honestly, there's no reason why they should change it, because the show has the audience it has. The creators and apparently the studio are apparently happy with the audience that the show has. I mean, they've decided that this upcoming season will be the last one, but it got 5 seasons, which is more than a lot of far superior streaming shows have gotten. So the studio must be happy with the size of the audience, and they're obviously not looking to attract new people, because if they were, they wouldn't be making the show that they're making. So, good for the Lower Deckers. They made it. They got 5 seasons for what I have considered to be a incredibly mediocre, unfunny show. But it's the last season coming up, and I'm sure the people who like that sort of thing will like it. As for the Tawny Newsome show, I really hope it. I hope it's a completely different style than Lower Decks. I'm really hoping that it'll be funny and good. But I am looking forward to the Tawny Newsome live action Star Trek comedy show. Stephen G. Clenard. Hey, Steve, I've been watching videos of dancing robots, the kind of bipedal humanoid ones from Boston Dynamics in Japan, and they're pretty good. A lot of it is generic rhythmic movement and shaking that thing. But I've also seen the robots perform recognizable moves, such as the shimmy, twist, Tucson two-step, and even the signature moves for That's the Way I Like It. Impressive! Conspicuously absent, however, are any videos of the robots doing the robot, and this understandably concerns me. Perhaps robot technology has not yet advanced to this point, but I fear it is more likely that they have achieved a level of sentience where they consider it to be demeaning and offensive, akin to cultural appropriation or blackface, and will seek retribution after the inevitable robot uprising. There may be a video of me doing the robot at an office holiday party, and I fear I will be terminated should it be discovered. That's not the way, I like it, help. You need to scrub that video, man. You need to find like one of those reputation restoring services that'll like clear out your Google results and stuff. And you need to hire them, pay whatever they want, pay them whatever they want. And if that fails, if you can't find a legitimate service that can guarantee that they will be able to get down all of those videos of you doing the robot, then you need to find some hackers. You need to go beyond the law, beyond perhaps even the limits of morality and ethics. And you need to get rid of all traces of that video, before the robots do achieve sentience and come after you, because I completely agree, and I think you are right on here. If that ever happens, if robots ever achieve sentience and decide to take revenge, you have got to be near the top of the list. You and I would imagine Michael Winslow, he's got it coming from way back. Eric Beyer, often when you make videos, part of your video library is visible in the background. Is there any chance you might someday walk us through your collection if you have not done so already? I'm interested in what you are interested in. Part of your video library is visible in the background. Is there any chance you might someday walk? It just repeats itself. There must be some typos there. Anyway, I'm interested in what you're interested in. Thanks again for all you do. I'm not sure if that was in the question or if that was my fault because I pasted it twice. But either way, Eric, I did that a couple of askaways ago, maybe 2 or 3 askaways ago. I believe, was it Joe? Joe McClory asked? Or some, I know one of my regulars asked if I could talk about the videos on my shelves that are visible in the background of some of my videos, and I took some pictures and went through sort of row by row what everything was. So go look for that one. I can't remember. It was. I can't remember exactly which episode it was. It was relatively recently, maybe 2 or 3 askaways ago. So go and watch on fast forward or seek through until you see what looks like photographs of my shelves, and that'll be the part where I'm explaining it. Kimba Anderson, I would love to know your thoughts about Jill Stein. For my part, I agree with almost all the Green Party platform, but they never put forward serious candidates. Well, that's because it's not a serious party. I wish that it was. I would love for there to be an actually viable third party in the United States, but they're not a serious party, and that's why they don't put up serious candidates. Jill Stein is a vanity candidate. She has no chance of winning. She's not going to win a single electoral vote. She's not going to win much more than maybe a few % of the nationwide popular vote. It's a complete waste. It's a complete waste of time, and it's a distraction. And I mean, if the Green Party or any third party, any minor party that has ambitions to break through and crack the two-party system, if they were serious about it, they wouldn't be constantly running vanity presidential candidates. They would be running candidates for local and state offices. They'd be running candidates for houses of the legislature at the state level. They'd be running candidates for city councils. They'd be running candidates for Congress and maybe eventually for the Senate if they get enough of a base of support in a particular state. But they would not constantly, every 4 years, be throwing out vanity presidential candidates to siphon votes away, usually from the Democrats, for no reason, accomplishing nothing. My thoughts about Jill Stein are, if you vote for her, you are accomplishing nothing except possibly contributing to the election of Donald Trump. So congratulations. No, she's a vanity candidate. She's a distraction. She's a waste of time. The Green Party is a waste of time as it is currently constituted. If they wanted to get serious about building a legitimate third party, then they should get started right now, and they should worry about building from the ground up, not trying to jump ahead. And no, it's ridiculous. They're not serious people. They're not serious people. And I even though I'm a Democrat and I don't have any expectation of ever being anything else, I think it would be good for our democracy, good for our political process in general, if there were more than 2 viable choices. But that choice I don't expect that choice to be the Green Party at any point in my lifetime, based on the way that they have conducted their business so far. John Burns, your video about focus groups reminded me about a focus group for The Cabin in the Woods. One of the first questions was, will you be doing a sequel? With the response of, do you remember how the movie ended? Another caused some people to ask, why doesn't anyone save Joan of Arc at the end of The Messenger? And where was the movie's setting? They did add the map at the beginning of the movie, but I do think you're overestimating the people who attend focus groups, probably done in LA. I think they might have a screening process, considering the number of influencers Hollywood might already be aware of. My question about Hollywood is, who canceled The Acolyte? No, I don't need to know the reasons, just who in Disney did it. That might make a more important video. Why do I give a shit who canceled The Acolyte? You mean like the actual executive, the actual person who made the decision to cancel I don't fucking know, dude. What difference does it make? Are you going to go to their house? Are you going to write them a letter? What the fuck difference does it make what executive canceled the act? Some Disney executive decided they weren't going to do a season 2 of The Acolyte. I don't know if it was Lucasfilm or it was higher up at Disney or if it was someone at Disney Plus. I don't know I don't know. Who the fuck cares? Who the fuck cares what specific executive decided to cancel The Acolyte? That's the answer. I don't fucking know. Who the fuck cares? Tofu Dunk. 1. Did Odo kill Laws with an STD? 2. I recall Ira Stephen Bear stating in the documentary What You Leave Behind that he felt disappointed not having queer representation, or at least engaging the conversation more in DS9, referencing the episode in which Jadzia encounters her previous host's partner didn't push the discussion enough. But looking back as to how Odo has described the joining of changelings as being intimate, and although changelings are genderless, both Odo and Laws present male, would it be safe to say that Odo and Laws showed the first male-to-male relationship in a Star Trek series? Maybe. I don't know. I feel like that's a little bit of a stretch. I mean, intimate doesn't necessarily mean sexually intimate. I mean, there are different levels of intimacy. I mean, presumably when changelings join each other in the link, it's like their selves are merging. It's not, like the equivalent of, two humanoids performing a sex act. It's more like a complete level of intimacy. So I don't know if you can necessarily always equate it to, well, that's how changelings have sex. I mean, I'm sure sometimes it is. It seems that sometimes it is based on other interactions Odo had with other changelings. But I don't know if it's necessarily the case that his joining with Laws was I think it was Loss actually in the episode. Anyway, what it was the equivalent of like a male to male romance or sexual relationship. But I mean, if somebody wants to treat it that way or interpret it that way, I'm certainly not going to fight them over it. But that never occurred to me when I watched the episode, and I don't really think that was the intention. And I think that's part of what Ira Stephen Bear was talking about. Like, if they had wanted to imply that that's what that relationship was, but then they weren't able to, that probably would have come up when he was discussing that subject in the documentary. General Contact Unit Problem Child. How do you deal with other cishet white men assuming you'll be cool with them saying bigoted stuff because you look like them? When we were scattering my grandfather's ashes in the woods, I casually joked to my uncle about the fact that Granddad never hired women because he was worried about them taking pregnancy leave. He was like, yeah, it's not fair. It's not legal, but it's hard running a small business. You can fudge why you hire and fire a bit. He inherited my grandfather's false teeth business. 2, the video you made about how TV writers shouldn't listen to obsessive fans. My issue is I'm not sure I trust them to distinguish between nitpicky nonsense and like minorities complaining about something genuinely problematic. P.S. After I got back from my holiday/vacation, I got some fish cake and chips done right from my local fish shop, from my local chip shop. And here is the pic that is linked there. Yeah, that looks pretty. I like the fries look a lot better. The fries have a lot more color on them than the last one you shared. And the fish cakes look, I think they look significantly larger than the other ones. So yeah, good job. As for the questions, so, I mean, how do I deal with it? I just sort of inwardly groan and maybe complain to someone after the fact. If someone, I mean, if it's something particularly egregious, I might say something about it. I might say, hey, don't talk like that, or, you and I are not on the same page about that, or whatever. But usually I just let it pass because life's too short, and I complain about it to someone else later. And yeah, you're right as far as the TV writer thing and the difference between obsessive fans who are just stuck on nitpicky stuff and people who might have a legitimate concern. But I mean, that's one of the reasons why I think I'm not a big fan of focus groups in general, because I feel like, I mean, first of all, it's usually not the writers who want the focus groups. It's usually producers and studio executives who want focus groups. Usually The people who are actually involved in the artistic part of making the movie are not the ones who are like, we got to focus group it. Every once in a while, a director might genuinely want to, to play a movie before a test audience or show it to a focus group or something like that. Like I said in the video, if there's a particular part of the movie that they're not sure whether or not it's going to play the way they want, that's where a test audience or a focus group might be useful. But generally speaking, most people who are artistically involved in the making of movies are not the people who are like, we want to have a focus group about it, because it smacks of art by committee, and that's usually not a good thing. But anytime you say that, I'm afraid the studio will learn the wrong lesson and they won't be able to distinguish between the nitpicking super fans and people with legitimate concerns, I think you're probably right. It's a legitimate thing to worry about. Simon Moody, it's Be Mean to Steve week. Not sure why. Does there have to be a reason? So a mean version of Desert Island Discs. In this case, in addition to whatever 8 audio recordings you want, a book and luxury item, you also get 1 TV series and the means to watch it, and only it. Lucky you, it's Star Trek week. Unluckily, the only options left are the animated series, Lower Decks, and Picard. Tell us why you picked the animated series. Then, I said this was mean, take that option away and tell us which of the other 2 you'd take and why. Remember, neither isn't a valid choice. You're stuck alone. Anything is going to be better than nothing to keep you sane in your isolation. Oh, man. So basically, I have to choose either Lower Decks or Picard to take with me on the day. I would choose Picard because Picard's just a more interesting show than Lower Decks. Picard's first season is not great, but at least attempts to try something, to do something different, or something to maybe take the character of Picard in a different direction. It doesn't quite work, and it has more ideas than it has time to explore those ideas, but at least there's some kernel of something interesting there. Season 2 is the worst season of Star Trek I've ever seen, but maybe watching it over and over again on a desert island would be a fascinating experience, would allow me to at least make some attempt to understand how it possibly came to be this way. Like, is there any sort of explanation for why a television show made by so many people who are evidently very talented people came out this rotten? And then season 3 is, the fan service explosion and is mostly garbage, but it does have one absolutely fantastic episode 4, No Win Scenario, and a handful of the other episodes. I think the couple of episodes leading up to that one, and then maybe the episode after that, are not bad. They're not great, but they're not bad. Like, the worst of season 3 of Picard is the first episode and the last episode, and the episodes that are sort of immediately leading up to the last episode, like maybe episodes 7, 8, 9, and 10, like that's when it just really just completely gives up doing anything remotely creative. So, I mean, Picard is not a good show, but Picard is a much more interesting show than Lower Decks. Lower Decks is one of the shallowest, least interesting Star Trek shows ever made. It's literally just, remember this, remember this, remember this, and characters going through the same character arc over and over again. 4 lead characters who aren't really all that different from each other, who are basically the same character, just shown to us 4 different times with the same character arcs that they repeat incessantly over and over again. A premise that doesn't even matter. Like the premise of the show that the characters these are the Lower Decks characters. They live in they don't get involved in the big adventure stuff, and then it's like, no, never mind. It's such a boring, badly written, just top to bottom bad show, and not bad in an interesting way. Bad like listening to a not very talented Trekkie that ran into you at a fan convention and cornered you, just reading their fanfic. It's not, I would much rather be forced to watch Picard again, because at least it's bad in potentially interesting ways than Lower Decks, which has nothing to offer but reminding me of Star Trek that I have watched before. and being loud, confusing volume with jokes and punchlines. It confuses volume and it confuses flat references to Star Trek for jokes. And characters being loud isn't necessarily funny, and characters reminding the viewer of another thing that happened in a different Star Trek show is not necessarily funny, and hardly ever is in the case of Lower Decks. Carlisle the Cinephile. Hello, Steve. I've recently been on a bit of an Alien kick after seeing and very much enjoying the new Romulus film. So I've been revisiting the franchise and something occurred to me. A lot of chud reactionaries love to cite Ellen Ripley as an example of a strong female character done right, and use her as an example of why their vitriol towards characters like Rey isn't based on sexism. After rewatching the films, I think that's just an excuse they throw around. Ripley is depicted as being outspoken, short-tempered, and openly challenges the authority of men around her. And then in the second film, she's able to storm the alien hive and take out the Queen, something the seasoned squad of Marines failed to do. If Ripley came out as a new character today, I am certain that these reactionaries would be lobbing the same critiques at her that they throw at Rey or Captain Marvel or whoever their target of vitriol is this news cycle. Do you think I'm onto something here? Absolutely, yes. The reason why they accept Ripley, those of them that do, is because Ripley already existed, and Alien and Aliens, specifically the first two, were already popular and acclaimed films when they were born or were discovering movies. It's sort of it's the pop culture equivalent of the Douglas Adams principle, you know, where everything that existed when you were born is natural and good. Everything that's innovated up until you're in your 30s is an exciting new wave of the future, and everything new that comes along after that is an abomination and is unnatural and needs to be destroyed. It's the same thing. They love Alien and they love Ripley because she already existed when their tastes were forming, and she was sort of grandfathered, or I guess grandmothered in. And new characters that come along that don't fit with their anti-feminist, misogynist worldview get attacked, but Ripley is okay because Ripley was already there. I think you're absolutely right. Sarah, what happened to Tulsi Gabbard? I mean, did something happen to her other than she just revealed who she always was? I mean, is she one of those people that just entered politics because she saw it as an avenue to get famous and to gain power and influence? And she made some kind of strategic decision at some point that leaning far to the right instead of the left was the better way to do that for her? I'm not sure. And frankly, I pay very little attention to her and spend very little time thinking about her. I mean, since she left the Democratic Party and left the left, and became a Trump supporter, I've had very little time for her at all, and I'm not I'm not regretting that. TMFJ, I think you're hilarious. Can you please subscribe to my gardening YouTube channel? TMFJ747. Well, since you ask so nice, and since you said I'm hilarious, and since you are a supporter, yes, I did. Earlier today, I subscribed to your gardening YouTube channel. And if anybody else is interested in gardening, there it is. TMFJ747 on YouTube. Go subscribe right now. Fair warning, I'm probably not going to watch too many of the videos because I'm just not into gardening, but I'm happy to subscribe and to help your subscriber numbers a little bit if I can. Andy Lawler, who thinks you should make more sarcastic fan service videos. Your hatred of it inspires greatness. Hey, Steve, blondes, brunettes, or redheads? I know that lasting, meaningful relationships are about so much more than appearance, and I'm not so shallow and superficial, but appearance is a factor. Blondes have only ever broken my heart. I talk a good game about my weakness for redheads. They're nature's most perfect and beautiful creations. But looking at my 3 adult relationships, 2 of whom I married and with whom I had children, apparently my real wheelhouse is brunettes with fat asses. My wife is fine with this description. My ex, not so much. So you're out and about, somebody catches your eye. Is that person usually blonde, brunette, or redhead? Thanks, and have a great weekend, everybody. I can honestly say that both historically speaking, in terms of relationships I have had, and just in terms of people that I might randomly see who I think, oh, she's attractive, I don't seem to lean in any particular direction. I am not primarily someone who is attracted to blondes or brunettes or redheads. I don't think it makes any difference for me. I, you know, for one thing, I usually the hair color of someone isn't one of the first things I notice anyway. There are so many things that make a woman attractive to me, like just in terms of appearance, not even like, once you get to know her and get to know her personality and stuff. Like, you can tell a lot about a person by their body language, by their attitude, by the way they are interacting with people. And there's a lot of stuff that is sort of intangible that makes me view someone as being attractive. I mean, it's confidence is attractive. Self-possession is attractive. There's things that transcend, that have nothing to do with hair color, that have nothing to do with any superficial physical attributes that I think are, that make another person extremely attractive. So no, I don't have any preference or any sort of customary leaning in one direction or the other as far as a blonde person, a brunette, or a redhead. Joe C. Howdy, neighbor. I live 13 miles north of the 40-degree latitude line in PA, so I can call you neighbor. I was listening to my second favorite podcast, The Morning Stream. They were talking about a geographical oddity called the Delaware Wedge. It's a little over 1 square mile plot of land that is on the border of PA, Delaware, and Maryland. Google it on Wikipedia. It was damn nice of you blokes to give that to Delaware. P.S. I mailed in my ballot this week. I am so over the political ads. I can't wait to watch TV for more than 10 minutes without getting bombarded with them. Cheers, your neighbor, Joe C. Well, thank you, Joe. Good to know you, neighbor. Yeah, I think if I may not be remembering it properly, but I think the Delaware Wedge is the result of part of the Charter of Delaware defined that there was like a 1 mile radius around Dover, maybe. I'm not sure. One of the major cities in Delaware, and obviously it would be to the north. That was like a 1 mile radius, or a 1 mile diameter, or a 1 mile radius. I can't remember what circle around that city, and that would also be part of Delaware, and it sort of encroached a little bit on the borders of Maryland and Pennsylvania. I think that's where the Delaware Wedge comes from. I could be wrong, though. I could be thinking of something completely different. But yeah, it was very nice of Pennsylvania and Maryland, specifically Maryland, to give that land to Delaware. I have very strong feelings about the fact that Maryland should reclaim the land it ceded to Delaware, and also to southern Pennsylvania, because there's a little strip of southern Pennsylvania that rightly belongs to us too. I made a video about it, I think last year. Still pretty mad about it. Debbie, we recently found out here in Texas, not a surprise, but our Governor Abbott is making a lot of changes in voting. He claims he is reading through voter registration cards to make sure no one has lied about their address or any illegal immigrants are trying to vote in the state of Texas. How crooked, stupid, and just oblivious. Cheating by Republicans, so wrong in every way. Yeah, and I mean, the sad part of it is, at this point, there have been numerous investigations in many states into the supposed threat of undocumented immigrants registering to vote or attempting to vote. And every investigation into that I am aware of has come to the same conclusion, that it hardly ever happens. That there are almost no cases of people who are not legally registered to vote, attempting to vote, or being able to successfully vote. And certainly it doesn't happen in numbers anywhere near large enough to actually make a difference in an election. It's a completely non-existent problem, but it is the basis for all of these Republican efforts. And the real reason is voter suppression, because Republicans know that in a fair vote, in a fair election where everybody who was eligible and registered to vote was allowed to vote without hardship, that they would lose a lot more elections than they currently do. And I mean, there are probably, I don't think they would lose Texas as a state. I think Texas as a state is still probably pretty solidly Republican, unfortunately. But I bet there are certain districts within Texas that they would lose if those races were conducted without voter suppression and also without gerrymandering. And that's why they are so fiercely protective of those things, and that's why they deploy those measures so ruthlessly, because they know that they can't be guaranteed of winning all the places they need to win otherwise. Mike Oxlong. Hiya, Steve. I'm finally sending a Patreon question again. Hooray! Anyway, I suspect your answer to this will be an emphatic and resounding who gives a shit, but I've been watching The Expanse lately, which I adore, and got to thinking, which I do sometimes, a lot of its worst fans hold it up as an example of superior sci-fi because it's hard sci-fi compared to the magic of Star Trek, Gate, Wars, etc. It got me wondering, is Star Trek not hard sci-fi because they say, for example, inertia is only a problem sometimes because usually we have this special machine that cancels it out, rather than The Expanse that says inertia is only a problem sometimes because usually it just doesn't exist in our world with no explanation? You are perfectly welcome to call me a nitpicking loser nerd. No, but I think you're right that I don't think it makes any difference. And honestly, you could argue that The Expanse is closer to being hard sci-fi than Star Trek because The Expanse does at least make more of an attempt to make its version of space travel feel plausible, in terms of the way they handle gravity on the spaceships and in terms of the way they incorporate acceleration and deceleration and things like that. But there's still plenty of really wacky out there fantasy concepts in The Expanse. I mean, it's not nearly as much as in Star Trek. Like, the thing about Star Trek is not only does it have sort of magical technology, but I mean, all the aliens look just like humans, or humans with shit on their faces. And there are aliens all over the place. And yes, the technology is whatever the story needs it to be. So, I mean, Star Trek is a lot looser in terms of disregarding plausible science for the needs of its story than The Expanse is, but The Expanse still has plenty of like fantasy elements. It's just that The Expanse, especially in the earlier seasons, it focuses on like the politics of the solar system and the Belters versus the people on Earth and that kind of thing. That feels more real, feels more plausible. So The Expanse feels more plausible than Star Trek, but I don't know if either one of them qualifies as hard sci-fi. And it makes absolutely no difference to me as far as the quality of the show. Like, there's nothing about hard sci-fi that makes it inherently better than a more fantasy leaning sci-fi like Star Trek or Star Wars or anything like that. It doesn't matter. What matters is the individual story, the individual show, the execution. That's the important thing. Not, oh, well, The Expanse is automatically better because it's more hard sci-fi. It makes no difference. At least to me. Genitalia. Did you fall for the Mike Oxlong thing bit? I was laughing my arse off when I came up with that one, but for I am but a simple man. You should be congratulated, because I did think it was funny, just as genitalia is also very funny. In fact, I like it so much I pronounced the last name Talia instead of Talia, which I normally would because I didn't want to spoil the pun. You're welcome. I just didn't want your hard work to go for naught. Agent Meister, who backed his car into a cop car the other day, but he drove off, so sometimes life's okay. You're on my good side now, buddy. Peldor Joy, Steve, I see how close the election polls are, and I wonder what is in the water in your country. I am fortunate enough to live in Ireland, and our politicians, though far from perfect, would not get within an ass's roar of power if they behaved even half as bad as Trump. His half-witted, redneck, die-hard base is one thing, but I see interviews with people, educated people, career men and women, who say they look up to him, that they are inspired by him, that he is the best thing for the U.S. right now. What I would love to know is if the U.S. is really that bad that this racist, misogynist, oafish, half-witted pig of a man-child with monuments to ignorance like Vance, MTG, and Giuliani in his vanguard seems to so many to be the best choice. And the Christians who support him, utter hypocrisy. I think of everything this guy has done, and I'm genuinely baffled as to how anyone can look up to this piece of shit. Nothing you haven't heard before, but I would love to hear your thoughts. I mean, yeah, there are that many people in the country who are racist or misogynist or xenophobic or just plain ignorant and gullible and credulous. That he has a significant base of support. I mean, I'm sure that it's more complex than that if you want to slice it thin demographically and sociologically, but in general, I think that's it. We're just a country with a whole bunch of really racist, bigoted, ignorant people. And they look at Donald Trump and they see someone that they perceive to be like them and that they perceive to be on their side and who tells them things they want to hear, mainly that nothing's their fault, and their problems are other people's fault, and their problems are easily solved. You know, if you just elect me and I'll fix it. These problems that are affecting your life right now, well, they're easy to fix. The only reason they're not being fixed is because people don't want to fix them. You know, governance isn't hard. Governance is easy, and elect me and I'll fix everything. He offers simple solutions. He offers simple answers. He offers absolution for their prejudices and their bigotries and the various other things that are actually their fault, that have negatively affected their lives. And he tells people what they want to hear. And it sucks for the rest of us and for the rest of the world. But I think that's the key to his support, is that he tells the people who support him what they want to hear, and he tells them that they are who they want to be, or at least who they want other people to think of them as. Brian Baker, Steve, social media has allowed geeks like us to gather and share ideas, but it's also allowed the spread of misinformation and hatred. Neo-Nazis and white supremacists have also gathered and grown stronger. The First Amendment doesn't allow for those idiots to be silenced, but is there a political or social solution? Intelligence spreads because of the technology, but stupidity seems to spread faster and farther. Keep up the good work, and let's try to get through the next few weeks with our wits intact. Boy, I'm right there with you. Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of it has to come down to the gatekeepers, the people who are in charge of networks, who are in charge of social media sites, who are in charge of the various platforms and venues that people use to interact and gather. I've said many times, when I was a child and a teenager, the same sort of ideas that you see spread readily on Twitter today or on TV, on Fox News, for example, conspiracy theories, lies, bigotry, xenophobia, anti-government rhetoric. That was the kind of stuff that you would read in like underground newsletters that some fanatic was Xeroxing, at his local post office or printing off in his basement, or that you would read in like thin little self-published paperback books that were sold on the spinner racks and truck stops, right? And now you can be a person who propagates that kind of misinformation and disinformation and have an audience of millions of people because of the internet. I mean, that's Alex Jones. Alex Jones toiled in relative obscurity for 15 or 20 years, doing the same kind of shit that he does now, doing the same kind of shit that eventually got him dragged into court and will hopefully result in him losing his website and losing all of his money, right? He was doing that kind of thing for years, but it was before the internet was what it was now, before social media, before YouTube, before it provided such a massive potential platform to reach an audience. And then, not only did Alex Jones do that, but a bunch of other people who are basically doing the same shtick did as well. So the people who control the platforms need to be courageous enough to recognize when their platform is being used to spread hatred and ignorance and intolerance and step in and do something about that. And to me, there's no First Amendment violation there. That's not the government saying you have to kick Alex Jones off of your website. That would be you as the owner or the moderator of the website saying, oh shit, I don't like the way this guy is using my platform to spread disinformation, to spread hatred, to whip up harassment against people. I'm going to kick him the fuck off. And that's my decision as the owner of the website. Like, that to me is not remotely a First Amendment issue. But that's the kind of thing I think that needs to happen. There needs to be less tolerance for the intolerant in public spaces, in real life and online. David Colby, ex-postie. So how long could David last in the post office? The answer, 3 days. God damn, Steve. Post office employees work hard. I was there for 3 days, and every single one was a 12-hour day because we had to cover 2 routes instead of 1. And I learned it's very easy to say that you're fine with overtime. It is very different to go from a self-directed job where you work at your own pace to one where you have like 4 hours of free time every day, split between 1 hour when you wake up and 3 hours when you get home and have to sleep. What this says to me is, holy shit, we need to fund the post office more, like a lot more. I've been told that it'd take Congress to raise the wage of postal employees then, which is what caused a big strike and led to the post office being non-funded by the USG. But counterpoint, just set wages to inflation. Jesus fucking Christ. Do I have to think of everything around here? Anyway, if DeJoy's head explodes scanner style, you know who did it. Well, I'm sorry that it didn't work out for you, but I'm glad you gave it a shot. And I'm glad you gained a newfound appreciation for the hardworking employees of the United States Postal Service. And as for everything else you said, I completely agree. It should be more robustly funded by Congress. Their wages should be increased. It should be treated once again as an agency of the government, not as some kind of government-owned independent business that is still expected to turn a profit. That's ridiculous. That was a huge mistake to ever do that in the first place. Yeah, postal workers are underpaid and underappreciated. I completely agree with you 100%. CMAC, who likely won't be on, but still wanted to submit. Good day, Steve. Well, I'll get straight to the point. The election is less than 30 days away. Early voting has already started. I'm still making calls in PA. I have to say, I'm scared. Our outreach is getting a lot of Trump supporters and folks complaining, I just don't know her well enough, which then you're not paying attention. Anyway, we are running phone banking for Harris in PA from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. daily in 3-hour shifts. If you've ever thought about volunteering with the campaign, now is the time. The polls are upsettingly tight. We need all the help we can get. I have a marginally better link this time. www.mobilize.us/2024 PA Victory. This is to all volunteer opportunities, but phone banking is the first and can be done by non-PA residents. It is time to leave it all on the table. Never question if you did all you could have done, and other platitudes, but for real. So there you go, everybody. If you were interested in helping out, specifically in getting out the vote in Pennsylvania, which is a very important swing state and could be very tight and is by no means a foregone conclusion that Harris is going to win that, mobilize.us/2024 PA Victory. There you go. Go there and see if there are options to help out that fit with your means and your skills and your schedule and your willingness to help. And absolutely get involved. We leave it all on the table, leave it all on the field. All gas, no brakes. I see a lot on social media from the Harris campaign. Absolutely. When we show up, we win. When we fight, we win. So let's fight, because if we lose, it's going to be very, very bad news for most of us. A patron who has just about had it with T-Rump and those tiny hands playing the air concertina. Yes, indeed. This action here. As November 5th draws near, my anxiety, irritability, and desire for violence has increased 5-fold. Diversionary measures were needed to remain sane and jail-free. I refocused my negative energies by remodeling my bathroom. I installed an open-mouthed Trump decal in my toilet, bought Trump toilet paper, and a Trump bowl brush. It's so satisfying to drop a load on that fucker's face and wipe my ass with his smug mug. Le piece de resistance is the flushing. Seeing shit go into his mouth instead of coming out the borders on borders on Nirvana. The bowl brush is his head atop a handle. I prefer to call a pike, and his hair makes up the bristles. A little cleanser in the bowl and a vigorous scrubbing quells my anxiety and irritability. My violence is satiated by ramming the piked head into the bowl's exit hole while twisting and scrubbing. One last flush with brush in bowl, and I've given him a swirly, plus made my toilet gleam again. The only problem, I wish I had diarrhea so I can have more therapy sessions. I think therapy might be something you should consider. I'm glad you found a way to deal. I'm very glad you have found a way to deal. But therapy sessions of another kind may be something you could consider. Joe McClory, I just watched a really fun XOXO video with Dan Olson about his professional envy and how it both drives him and distracts him from projects. I would recommend the video if you haven't seen it. Do you have any examples of bits of media that you see and think, I could have made that, I wish I could make that, or why didn't I think of that first? Oh, yeah. Actually, I've probably had that feeling with Dan stuff before, because of all of the sort of big, far more successful than me YouTubers that I watch regularly, Dan's stuff is the closest to stuff I would do if I had the time and the resources. Like, you know, I love H Bomber Guy, but I would never make the videos he makes. I love Philosophy Tube, but I would never make the videos that Abigail makes. I love ContraPoints, but I would never make the videos that Natalie makes. Like, they have their own style and their own areas of interest, and it's just not the kind of stuff that I would do, even though I watch it and think it's great. But Dan is a lot closer to the kinds of videos that I do make sometimes, and that I would make more often if I had, you know, what he has in terms of resources and also in terms of ability, frankly, because he's really, really good at it. So yeah, I have that all the time. And even on a smaller scale, there will be times when, like, I'll be watching someone else's video and it's not the video itself, but it's like a line or a joke or like a concept or a framing of an issue or something like that that is so good that I'll think, oh man, I should have thought of that, you know? And it's usually a positive experience. It's usually a motivating experience. I've never had the experience of like wanting to like throw a shoe at the TV. I'm like, oh, goddamn motherfucker, I can't believe it. You know, like I don't get jealous. I don't get resentful. But there is definitely a motivating factor, you know, like the next one's going to be mine. You know, he's not going to beat me to a joke next time, like that kind of thing. Yeah, so I can relate to that. Some random geek who sometimes looks like a Scottish wizard. Thank you for coming on my friend Corey Johnson's YouTube channel and podcast, The Skeptical Leftist, for the panel stream on Tuesday. It was a great chat with you, Corey, Justin Clark, Foxy Jazabel, me, and Chrisiosity. And yeah, I want the election to be over with. Deadbeat dads or deadbeat parents. We touched on this one before. We are both in favor of a UBI and unconditional basic services. We don't care if someone is just sitting around playing video games, but that will encourage more deadbeat dads. Yes, someone said, you are in favor of child abuse then, because I am in favor of UBS. But what about deadbeat parents? What to do? I say support single parents and any child. A UBS also helps, and forcing someone to be a parent that doesn't want to be a parent is not good for the child or the other parent. And we shouldn't stigmatize someone raising someone else's kid. Nothing wrong with step parents. What do you think? Well, first, yes, of course, no, there should be no stigma attached to raising another person's biological child. There's nothing wrong with step parents. A good step parent is a wonderful thing and is a great thing for a child to have. And, you know, most people that I have known in my life that had step parents that they were close to considered them another parent. Like they didn't draw a distinction between, I mean, they may have referred to them as my stepmom or my stepdad, but but that was just to distinguish them from their biological parent, you know. But they considered them to be just no different, no lesser than, their biological mom or dad or whoever. And yeah, I mean, if we lived in a world where there was universal basic income or universal basic services, and everybody had as a baseline what they needed, and it was not as imperative or maybe even necessary for people to, as we have now, to sort of trade their labor for the ability to exist, if that was no longer an issue for most or all Americans, then yeah, I guess deadbeat dads not paying their child support would not be as much of an issue. But I personally wouldn't really care. I mean, the point of child support is to support the child. The reason why a deadbeat dad is a bad thing is because they are depriving their child of necessary support. If the child is being supported, nevertheless, if the child is okay, if the child has everything that they need, whether or not there is input in the life of that child from the absentee father is a matter for that family and is none of my business. And I don't care. Like, it's not the job of child support is not supposed to punish the deadbeat dad or the non-custodial parent. Like, that's not the point of child support is not to punish the parent that left or the parent that doesn't have custody. The point of child support is to make sure that the child is okay and the child has what the child needs. And if there is universal basic income and the child has what they need to grow up and be healthy and happy and taken care of, and that requires no contribution whatsoever from the non-custodial parent, okay. I mean, you can still judge the father and say, well, he's a scumbag because he doesn't want to be involved in his child's life. Okay, well, you're free to make that judgment. I'm sure it's different with every situation. But I would not view that as a valid reason to oppose universal basic income. That's a really, really, really silly reason to say, like, well, if we had universal basic income, then there'd be more deadbeat dads. Okay, would the kids be okay? Would the kids be better off? If the kids are going to be okay, then who gives a fuck how many deadbeat dads there are? It's none of your fucking business. It might be the business of the kid or the mom who would like for the dad to be more involved in an emotional way, in a supportive parental way. But that's not anybody else's fucking business. So, and it's certainly not an argument against universal basic income or universal basic services. Air One Fire, living in constant fear. Hi, Steve. So far, I've seen 15 new horror movies since the last Ask Away. I've seen Cat People, and I don't know, it wasn't really for me. A lot of Hammer sequels were also underwhelming after the great Horror of Dracula and Curse of Frankenstein. Quatermass Experiment was just sucky, and Nosferatu the Vampire was kind of meh. By far the best I've seen since Horror of Dracula was Tucker and Dale versus Evil. Goddamn, what a movie. So, can you recommend me something more? As before, I want a good story, maybe an interesting or unique premise, or just a fun horror movie. P.S. I apologize for recommending Lullaby. I just watched it again after 14 years and it was garbage. Best wishes. Well, I haven't watched it, so no apology necessary. Tucker and Dale versus Evil is really good. I agree. I really like that movie. Nosferatu the Vampire. I presume by that you mean the Herzog version, the Herzog remake. I love that movie. And look, yeah, some of the sequels to Dracula and Frankenstein, the Hammer ones, aren't great, but I really, really like Dracula Prince of Darkness, which is the second Christopher Lee Dracula movie. It's the first sequel to, it's not technically, I don't think it's the first sequel to Horror of Dracula, but it's the second time that Christopher Lee plays Dracula, because I think they did a sequel where Dracula wasn't actually in it, where it was like a Van Helsing movie or something. But Dracula Prince of Darkness I have always really, really liked. And some of the later Frankenstein's one are good. Have you seen and Frankenstein Created Woman? I've always loved that. I thought that was a really good one. Have you seen In a Violent Nature? I think that came out last year, and you may have seen it because it's relatively recent. But if you haven't seen In a Violent Nature, I would highly recommend that. That is the best horror movie I have seen in quite a few years. So yeah, if you haven't seen that, that's what I would recommend. Kara, aka the Tolkien Nerd. Hi, Steve. I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos from something called the Lincoln Project, the scariest of which is the one entitled It Couldn't Happen Here, which is utterly, utterly terrifying. My question is simply this. Do you think that when, and we have to hope it's when and not if, Harris Walls win, they have any chance of overturning all the damage that Donald Trump has done to the country? I'm sorry to get political, but quite frankly, I believe Trump is dangerous. Would like to hear your thoughts. Well, yeah, I agree with you. Of course he's dangerous. He's incredibly dangerous. He was dangerous when he was president last time, and it would be even more dangerous, I would say, to make him president again. Yes, of course they have a chance of overturning all the damage. Now, it might take, depending on how much support they have in Congress. I mean, look, if, let's just say it's a fantasy scenario, and I'm not expecting this to happen, but let's just say there's a fantasy scenario where the election results are just about as good as they could possibly be. And not only do Harris and Walls win at the top of the ticket and Harris and Walls become respectively the president and the vice president, but the Democrats also increase their majority in the Senate and win back the majority in the House. Let's just say, like, at the federal level, the Democrats run the table and everything comes out as good as it possibly could. In that scenario, I think at least the legal damage, the policy damage, the legislative damage that Trump has done could be reversed relatively quickly with enough determination. Like, it's just a matter of, if you have the support in the legislature to pass the bills, it's just a matter of passing the bills. The damage he's done to the judicial branch is going to be much longer lasting because he appointed a lot of judges, not just in the Supreme Court, which we're going to be stuck with for a while, I fear, but also in the lower levels of the federal court. That's going to take a long time to cycle out because Trump did appoint a lot of right-leaning or radically right-wing judges to the federal bench. So that's going to take some time to fix. And then there's the cultural damage, which the president and vice president can begin to repair by setting a better example, by reminding people what a president and a professionally run, serious government is supposed to look like and feel like. And hopefully the kind of prevailing attitude in the country since Trump rose to prominence will start to fade, but that will take time as well. So, I mean, yes, it can be reversed. Nothing is forever. Eventually, the damage that Trump caused will be mended and we will begin to make progress again. But in certain areas, it'll take a lot of time because there's a lot of that kind of damage that a president can't just issue an executive order and say, there, it's not that way anymore. But yes, I think it is definitely possible that the damage can be reversed. Don Quixote, if things don't go our way on November 5th, I'm contemplating building a suit of armor and traveling the country, terrorizing the Republicans who voted for Trump. It won't be hard to find them, as they never take down their yard signs. I might have a problem finding a squire, though. Now that both our teams are eliminated from the postseason, O's and Phil's, will you be actively watching games or just put your team on a shelf and wait for the spring? A lot of my extended family are Yankee fans. As much as it pains me, I'll be rooting for them. No, I mean, I honestly didn't watch that many games when the Orioles were still in it. I'm usually too busy to actually sit down and watch a baseball game. Unfortunately, I wish that was not the case. I'd love to be able to watch more baseball. But no, I didn't watch that much baseball this year to begin with. So no, I'm not going to be making an effort to watch the postseason. I have a limited amount of time and I have to spend time doing other stuff. So I'm not really rooting for anybody. I haven't really had a serious rooting interest in the postseason for the past several years. Isaiah Taylor, sorry for the late post. Last weekend, October 4th, was the anniversary of the 1957 launch of Sputnik 1, the first spacecraft to orbit the Earth and started this amazing adventure called space exploration. Say what you will about communism or the Soviet Union, but they started the greatest adventure in human history. To commemorate the occasion, I watched 2 late 90s movies set during that time, The Iron Giant and October Sky, based on the Homer Hickman novel. October Sky is such a sentimental and great movie, and the ending really messed me up, but I think The Iron Giant is my favorite movie ever. Yes, even determining Titanic. Sorry, James Cameron. The Iron Giant has one of the most eclectic soundtracks ever. Some music pieces sound like they were written for a spy movie, and others sound sweet and innocent. I also liked licensed music from the dinner. I really liked the F-86 Sabre jet scenes. It has the most intense opening of any animated I think I've ever seen. Thoughts? It's one of my favorite movies too. I love The Iron Giant. It might be my favorite animated movie ever, or at least my favorite American animated movie ever. There might be one or two like Miyazaki films that I would rank higher than The Iron Giant, but yeah, I love The Iron Giant. I saw it in theaters when it came out in 99. I loved it from the first time I saw it. I've watched it I don't know how many times since. It's just a great movie. It's it's just a really, really, really great movie. So I'm right there with you. I love, and yes, the fact that it does take place in the late 50s and it is sort of set in the background of Sputnik, and the sort of the way the Red Scare kind of played into the early days of the space program. Yeah, that's all sort of icing on the cake, you know. But I mean, the animation, the characters, the performances by the cast. It's a great movie. I love The Iron Giant. It's a great movie. MW Ridra, hey Steve, I hate to e-beg, but my medical expenses for my heart and kidney issues have become pretty bad. I'm currently about $60K in debt, though working on getting some forgiveness for some of that debt. Isn't U.S. medical care great? I was hoping to ask any of your viewers with the ability and desire to do so to donate what they can or want to my PayPal at hi.tech.artist@gmail.com. Thanks in advance to anyone who helps. I know things are tight for nearly everyone right now. Anyway, here's a joke. Why do cannibals refuse to eat instant noodles? They prefer raw men. Get it? Raw men? Yeah, because you spelled it out both times. So yes, hi.tech.artist@gmail.com. If anybody is able to and compelled to help, please send a couple of bucks Michael's way, because that would be greatly appreciated by him and by me as well. And also, if you like cannibal jokes, you know, throw a tip in the jar. And finally, last question. That guy who often clashes with a certain guy, or Russell. Hey, Steve, last week I got into a very heated debate with someone tackling some issues like capitalism versus communism and police state. First issue, if we were to truly live in a communism world, possessions wouldn't be a thing under UBI. And this type of society, we would all be given the same resources each. So instead of living in a house, you would have to downgrade to a studio apartment, unless you had dependents, so that 4 people could live in said house. Joe Pesci sold a home worth over $2.5 million, and that home looked like it could house 12 single people. Here is the thing. When someone attacks capitalism, they attack the accomplishments and achievements one has worked very hard for. Not always. We do have the billionaires. Under communism, we are under the government's thumb. Under capitalism, we are under the billionaire's thumb. So no change there. And when I am talking about the people who earned it, I am speaking of the middle to lower class society. That was part 1. See you. I don't think that UBI would require people to give up their possessions. I don't think most forms of communism would require people to give up their personal possessions. I feel like we've talked about this before, the distinction between personal property and private property. Personal property would still be a thing. Like, you could still have your own personal possessions under a communist system. So that part of it doesn't seem to, that part doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah. And I mean, I guess you talk about taking away what people have earned in the middle and the lower class. I am not a communist. I am not an expert on communism. But I would expect the response to that from a communist would be that they are more concerned with the needs and the interests of the people below the middle and lower middle class who don't have anything, who are struggling just to survive, who are struggling to put food on the table and clothes on their backs and to make sure their children are okay. And the goal of people who advocate for that kind of social and economic reform is to lift up those people at the bottom. And if that means that the people in the higher levels of the economic social strata need to make do with slightly less than they have in order to give enough to the people at the bottom, well, then so be it. So, a lot of your arguments there, even though I am not personally a communist, but a lot of the arguments you're making there are not terribly compelling to me. So, at least if I understand them. All right, that's it for the patron and member questions. Now, I'm going to turn my attention to the live chat for the rest of the show. But first, it's that special time that comes along about every 2 weeks in the Ask Away stream when I debut a brand new Stuffy and Friends short. This short I'm about to show you will debut as a standalone YouTube short on my channel tomorrow, but you get to see it first before anybody else right now. So please enjoy a brand new Stuffy and Friends short. Do you know what's ruining everything?
Climate change?
Yes, but not what I'm getting at.
Studios all starting their own streaming services?
No.
Weltschmerz?
You had your guess. What's ruining everything is licensed Lego sets. It used to be that Legos were a creative tool. Now you get a set of instructions. So not only are we teaching people that the true value of art lies in the consumer products it creates, we're also conditioning people to derive enjoyment from following orders rather than using their imaginations.
Wow.
Wow, what?
I think you're drawing an overly broad conclusion, but I find your underlying concern to be valid, and I share it.
Why do you sound so surprised?
Because you are typically such a dolt.
Excuse me. I was asking Stuffy.
Well, I would never call you a dolt.
Aw, thanks, man. That one was really hard to edit, by the way, because as written, it was way too long. Like a YouTube short, which I want all of these to be able to be standalone YouTube shorts. A YouTube short has to be a minute or less. And my lines in that one, as like on the page, it seemed like it was the right length, but when I performed it, I gave myself so much dialogue that it was like a minute and 40 seconds. Like, and in the tightest edit that I could get, just if I kept everything as scripted. So I had to kind of chop it up a little. So if it plays as slightly choppy, it's because I had to rip big hunks of it out to get it to fit the 1 minute running time. But I'm pleased with how it came out. All right, let's see what's going on in the live chat. Hello, everybody. Let me see here. Did I miss anything? I don't think I missed any super chats. Good. Oh, hey, Trek Culture. Good to see you. Kara, he might call me a fool like in the heat of battle. Like if we were having a really like hot argument, he might call me a fool, but then he would immediately feel bad about it because that's just the kind of guy Stuffy is. Joseph Wolf, would Patreon be allowed under a communist system? See, that's something I don't know. I guess it would depend on the specific communist system being proposed. Hi, Kevin. Betty Veronica 2.0 says, I briefly dated a guy in high school whose name was actually Trek. That poor bastard. My God. Parents can be so cruel, can't they? Like, who would name it? Unless it's, I mean, maybe if they come from a part of the world where that's like a normal name, but if they were like from a Western country and they name their child Trek, that's like some I don't know. I'm not a fan of that. Steven says you'd like Stuffy to call me a knave. That's a bit twee for Stuffy. I don't know if Stuffy would say that. I don't know if he would call me a knave. Dragonfire Gaming says, I feel like the only cishet man in the UK that cares about trans issues. Got any words of comfort? I'm honestly in a constant existential crisis. You're on the right side. Like, I don't know. I'm afraid I can't offer you a lot of comfort, but I will tell you, you can take comfort that history is on your side. You're on the right side of history. You know, you're coming from a place of tolerance and acceptance and compassion. And I'm sure there are people in your life, and maybe even people who see your chat message right now, who appreciate it and are glad that you do care about trans issues, because trans rights are human rights, and it's important that we all fight for equal human rights for everybody, including trans people right now, because they are being so terribly mistreated. So, I mean, it counts for something. I don't know. You may feel like you're outnumbered and overwhelmed, but it counts for something. Daryl says reports of Ellen DeGeneres dying are exaggerated. The truth is probably that she left the U.S. fearing that Trump will win big. I haven't heard either one of these, so I don't. I mean, all I know, last I heard of Ellen was that she had a new stand-up special up on Netflix that I haven't watched. I haven't heard that she has died or that she has left the United States. David Colby says, people say The Expanse is better than Star Trek because it's hard sci-fi, but the Epstein drive is as silly as warp drive. The Expanse is just better than Trek because it's better. That's true. Yeah, they do have that faster than light drive, don't they? Yeah, yeah. Well, it feels more like hard sci-fi. And like I said in my answer to the question, like they take greater pains to present it in a way that feels plausible. And it really works. Like, I like it a lot. But you're right. I mean, the reason it's a good show is because it's a good show, because it has really interesting characters and really smart writing. And at least when I watched it, I was really invested in what was going on. And you can do that with hard sci-fi. You can do that with Star Trek sort of fantasy style sci-fi, or Star Wars or whatever. Like, it doesn't make a difference. You know, good writing, good execution, good characters. That's what matters. Jason's here. Opinionville. Steve, you don't understand the Lego progression. It goes Duplo, brick set, license set, master builder, sheesh. You're right. I don't know very much about Lego. I've forgotten most of what I used to know about Lego because I haven't had a Lego set since I was a child. Isaiah Taylor says, the Iron Giant goes from Sputnik falling into the eye of a hurricane, and then Emmett Walsh on a sinking ship in a storm-tossed sea. He sees the giant, and then on a peaceful morning. What an opening. Yeah, it's a great movie. 255 AD says, I was there. Me and Geek said nothing about housing. I timed him out for 17 seconds for obsessively defending cops. That's... In the words of the bartender from Pulp Fiction, my name's Paul, and this shit's between y'all. I don't care. I'm sure you had a very good reason for timing him out. I'm sure he thinks that you were completely unfair. I don't give a shit. It has nothing to do with me. I'm not mad at anybody. I don't give a shit. If you're the moderator in someone else's chat and you decide somebody needs to be timed out, then fucking go for it. Do your thing. I trust your judgment. I don't give a shit. Trek Culture says, what current wrestler would you like to see in Star Trek next? Well, I mean, Cody. Because, I mean, first of all, Cody's my favorite wrestler. And Cody is a Trekkie. So I'd like to see Cody as... But, you know, Cody is Cody, so I would like to see Cody as the captain of a ship. Not necessarily like the star of a show. I don't think they should cast Cody as like the lead protagonist of a show. But, you know, maybe an upcoming episode of Strange New Worlds and Captain Pike's Enterprise rendezvous with another Federation ship. And the captain of that ship is a handsome blonde fellow with an interesting neck tattoo by the name of, played by Cody Rhodes. I don't know what his character name would be, but yeah, make Cody like a guest star captain on a Starfleet show. Or Cena. Can't go wrong with Cena. Although I don't know if he might be a little expensive. Like they're like Cena or Batista. I mean, like there's some wrestlers that have turned out to be really good actors and had really successful careers in the last 15, 20 years. But I think the really biggest, the biggest stars are probably beyond Star Trek's budget at this point. Unless they like really, really wanted to do it and they were willing to, cut their fee. Oh God, Kara. I once knew a guy at my English boarding school called Aragorn. He changed his name once he hit 18. And I hope he fucking never spoke to his parents again, too. Jesus. Jason says, if you had children, you would never have escaped Lego. I will add that to the list of reasons why I'm so glad I never had children. Jose Silva says, opinions from a European on the U.S. elections. You'd better elect the right person because your elections, but it affects the whole world. I'm right there with you. I want to elect the right person because first and foremost, like I live here, but yes, I recognize absolutely our elections do affect the rest of the world. So I appreciate your interest. Steve Schmeling says, did you see any of the Northern Lights last night? No, but to be fair, I did not even look. Yes, I thought about Nick, Geek. I thought about Nick and his interest in Lego. I thought about Nick when I was writing it. Yes. Okay, super chat from Kirok. I will comment on today's question from Geek. The question itself was ambiguous. I never said deadbeat dads is the reason to not have UBI. Okay, listen, dude, if you want to give me super chats and talk about this, that's completely up to you. But I promise you, I don't give a shit about this. Like, this is an argument between you and Geek and I guess 255 AD. I don't give a shit. I'm not interested. So if you want to share, go ahead. I'm not going to tell you not to, but just for your own personal interest, I don't care. Dragonfire Gaming says, do you think Kamala is holding back her true opinions on Israel and Gaza because she's a presidential candidate serving under an ideologically Zionist president? Maybe. I mean, I kind of hope so, because I would love for us to take a more pro-Gaza policy. I would love for us to do more in trying to stop what Israel is doing to Gaza. But I mean, I don't know. Like, I have no idea. That may just be wishful thinking. I mean, she's better on Gaza rhetorically than Biden. She hasn't really promised any kind of policy change that would make that much of a difference, but at least she has gone a little bit further out of her way in terms of acknowledging the suffering and the fact that the suffering in Gaza is unacceptable and needs to stop. It's just words, but it's more words and more encouraging words than we've usually gotten from Biden, who mostly just kind of acknowledges it, but then goes right back to the, Israel has a right to defend itself thing. But yeah, I don't know. Bishop Knight 13, Cody as a Section 31 captain. No, Cody as a proper Starfleet captain in the gold uniform and everything. I want Cody on the bridge of a ship. Trek Culture, yes, that's right. Cody was the champion in What Culture Wrestling, wasn't he? During his independent period before he co-founded AEW. That's right. Let's see. Super chat, another super chat from Kirok. What I had said is when you have a person getting women pregnant and not taking responsibility for his children is abusive, and people who support deadbeat dads support abuse. This has nothing to do with 255 AD. Okay, well, I'm just saying again, in a universe where there is universal basic income and a kid's needs are being seen to, and they're not going to starve or be without basic necessities because of the absence of the father or the absence of financial support from the father, I don't see how that is necessarily abusive. I mean, if the only thing the father is doing is just not being around and not being in his child's life, that might be being a shitty parent, but I don't think that's necessarily abusive. And also, once again, I don't care about your argument with Geek or 25580 or anything. Like I really do. I appreciate the super chat. And if you send another super chat, I'll be happy to read it out loud. But this is an argument that I have no investment in whatsoever. Oh, Boxy Brown, have you been watching the new season of Frasier? Yes. Yes, I just watched the new episode yesterday, I think, or actually it might have been this morning. Though I think I watched it this morning. The one where Rachel Bloom guest starred as Phoebe's daughter. I love Rachel Bloom. She's fantastic. I've loved her in everything I've ever seen her in. She's hilarious, and it's always nice to see her, show up in something. It's all right. The new Frasier, it's okay. Like, I don't hate it. I feel like if it wasn't a revival of Frasier, I might like it a little better because it's fine. It's like a decently written throwback sitcom. It's not great, but it's all right. It has its moments. The new episode made me laugh a couple of times, had a few good bits. But because it's a revival of Frasier, which is one of the great sitcoms ever, and the new version is not nearly at that level, is not even close to being that good. There's, it feels like, okay, like you brought back Frasier for this. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's like, is it worth reviving a treasured, classic show just to do a usually pretty okay version of it? I don't know. Jason, you got me there. A man who ironically still loves He-Man. Be careful about throwing around the old "I'm a grown man" card. I'll throw around whatever fucking card I want. What are you going to do about it? Touche, though. You got me. Stephen G. Clenard says, what's the name of your favorite pet? Who was your first grade teacher? What was the name of what was the make of your first car? What is a 4-digit number that you must remember but never tell anyone? I'm not falling for that again. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, also shame on me. Fool me 4 times, and let's just not find out. Super chat from John Burns. Lots of particles in the atmosphere would help lowering Earth temperatures. Are there mountains we could use via conventional means? Are we there? I have no idea what you're talking about. Thank you for the super chat, John. I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. Are there conventional means to lower Earth's temperature? There are no conventional means of doing that. That's not a conventional thing to do. If we figure out a way to do it, it will be by definition an unconventional thing. Now you're threatening me with killing off my character on the Ensign's log. What am I going to do about it? How about the Ensign's log? The miserable death of Steve Johnson. So I make the title. Sweet. Boxy Brown, it's mildly funny. The show really misses Niles. Yeah, you know what? I felt the missing of Niles. I felt the absence of Niles in this new episode because the lines that were supposedly Niles's lines that were being delivered by his son, that were like Niles's comments on Frasier's manuscript. Those were some of the funniest lines in the episode. And I could hear David Hyde Pierce saying them as Niles. And I was like, oh man, yeah, Niles is so funny. I wish Niles was in this. Or that there was a character as funny as Niles in this. And unfortunately there's not. Trying to 1701. Is it technically possible for the Senate to be fully Democrat? Yeah, it is. Yes, there's nothing constitutionally preventing one party from getting elected to all the seats. Yeah, it's possible. I don't think it's ever going to happen. And I'm not even sure if it would be a good thing, but yeah, it's possible. Oh, and Carlisle, no, I have not seen. I have not seen Alien Romulus. I'll probably see it when it comes out streaming at some point. 255 AD says, I read in a study that men assumed women would think the most attractive superhero is Batman, but women actually picked Spider-Man. Why do you think that is? Because they don't have to look at his face. Like they just say, keep the mask on, and they don't have to watch. They don't have to look at his face. Because who knows what kind of weird faces he's making. But, you know, people make weird faces when they're in the act. And sometimes that's off-putting for people. So you don't have to see his face. It's in the mask. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to make eye contact. Because, like, if you're not really close with someone, if it's just like a hookup, sometimes people don't really like the eye contact. And Spider-Man has the big opaque eyes. You don't have to worry about it. David Colby says, John's talking about geoengineering to put particulates that reflect light away from the earth, jacking our albedo up. It's plausible, but it'd be stupidly hard. And not conventional. That's what I'm saying. Like, what's the conventional means? You know? All right, John, sure. Another super chat. In 1815, a mountain exploded. 1816 was the world without summer. If this can happen naturally, we humans can cause it as well. Okay, so come up with, I guess, conventional means of exploding a mountain and creating a large enough cloud of dust that it would affect global warming on an ongoing basis. Oh, Jason, that's a good point, because Spider-Man is not godlike or brooding. That's true. Spider-Man is strong, but I don't think he's so strong that you would have like a Man of Steel, Woman of Kleenex situation if like you were having sex with Spidey, you know? Like, I don't think his cum would come out of your back like a shotgun blast, like Superman's would. According to Larry Niven and also me. Like, I believe that for a fact. Those kids that Lois and Clark have in Superman and Lois, that's artificial insemination. He jacked off into some kind of like special Kryptonian cup that he had in the Fortress of Solitude, and they turkey basted that shit. There's no way that he's coming inside Lois. She'd be fucking dead. There, you can't control that. It's an involuntary act. It's an involuntary action. You can't choose to ejaculate at a lower velocity. It just doesn't work unless that's one of Superman's powers. Maybe that's one of Superman's powers. But no, he any human person that took a load from a Kryptonian would be dead. It's just the fact. It's just the way it is. Oh, Kimba, that's a good point. Spidey does have a sense of humor. Yeah. David Colby, it's called tactile telekinesis. Yeah, okay. So again, is it like it's a power, an extra power that Superman has that we've never heard about? Steve Schmeling says, how did you feel about Batman getting a star in the Hollywood Walk of Fame? Do you consider it a miscarriage of justice that he got one before Superman? No, because, I mean, it's popularity, and Batman has been more popular than Superman for a while. I mean, I think it's kind of silly to give stars on the Walk of Fame to fictional characters, but I mean, if you're going to give them out to fictional characters, Batman's as deserving as anybody. So, okay, I'm not against it if you're going to do it. Oh, hi, Carlisle's kitty. Hi, Buford. Geek says also you don't have to hear what Spidey has to say since you can't understand. His mask covers his mouth. Yeah, there you go. Like it's just garbled, you know. Like, what is he saying? I think he's trying to say like a quip or something. And it's, what? Just shut up. Just shut up. Oh, John, this is a good question, especially since Jason's here, if he's still here. Do you guys plan to review the rest of that Amazon Batman show? Or did you guys just not like it well enough? I don't think we're going to review the rest of it. We have both independently watched the rest of it now. I know Jason didn't like it. I didn't like it either. I didn't hate it, but I just was kind of like, what's the point of this? very, very underwhelming, very mediocre. I got to the end of it and I was like, all right. I mean, if they do a season 2, I'm probably not even going to bother watching it. It left me very, very cold. So no, we have no plans to review the rest of it. We gave up. Is tactile telekinesis one of his powers in the I'm sorry, it's not one of the big ones. Is it like a Silver Age thing? Because I could be into that. John Burns says, are you saying you'd rather a future president used a nuclear way of lowering temperatures? Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. I demand it. Kirak with a super chat, changing the subject. You got it wrong Wednesday. Last Star Trek's watch was not the last time we see Dr. Zimmerman. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. His appearance on his last appearance on Voyager comes after that. I never said that it was the last time we saw Dr. Zimmerman. Oh, Debbie, thank you very much, Debbie, with a $20 super chat. I really appreciate that. Yeah, Jason said, yeah, just boring, pointless, had nothing to say, had no new twist on any of the characters or any of the stories. Yeah, just Nick Soapdish, what is my opinion on Snow White 2025? I mean, I have no opinion on it right now because I haven't seen it. I'm not opposed to it, but I haven't seen it. It's another live action remake of an animated classic, so I'm not super hyped for it. But I'll know more when I actually watch the movie. If I watch the movie. Michael Superbacker, hey Steve, did you see the article that Patrick Stewart wants to make another movie as Picard? He's been saying that since season 3 of Picard came out. I really hope they don't. I really hope they don't. Boxy Brown, Soup Scott Lois pregnant with pre-cum. John Burns, Tom Robbins, would you miss the moon? I haven't. Oh, Tim Robbins, would you miss the moon? Okay, I have no idea what that's in reference to. Double Guitars with a super chat says, what's your opinion on the Section 31 movie so far? Again, kind of like the question about Snow White. I haven't seen it. I have no opinion on it. I haven't seen it. I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm kind of looking forward to it. I really like Michelle Yeoh. Judging by the trailer, it seems like, it might be something a little different, kind of like a spy movie type of thing. But you can't really judge from a trailer. I'm not sure. I'll know when I've seen it, Like, I'm not like counting the days. I'm not as excited about it as I am about season 3 of Strange New Worlds, but I'm not dreading it or anything. I'm curious to see what it is. Hi, Brian. Carlisle, the Cinephile, says, can someone explain to me how we got on the topic of Superman's jizz? Because someone pointed out that apparently there was like some kind of opinion poll that said that women, I guess hetero women, are more attracted to Spider-Man than to Batman. And I said, that makes sense. Or to Superman. And I said, that makes sense because Spider-Man is strong, but he's not as strong as Superman. So you wouldn't have to worry about taking a load from him and, getting fucking murdered by it. David Colby explains it's how he's able to lift impossibly heavy things, despite the fact that leverage and physics would make it impossible. It'd be like pushing a push pin into a wall otherwise. Is that from The Science of Superheroes? Because I read that book like 20 years ago, but I can't really remember. Yeah, Steven, because Picard season 3 wasn't embarrassing enough. Apparently not. 255 AD says, I was trying to get you to comment on the fact men assume women like the brooding guy, but they actually pick the lighthearted guy with a sense of humor. Well, but there's a lot of men that are never going to learn that lesson. There's a lot of men that always are going to assume that women like the dark brooding guy. Super chat from Ale, who says, just wanting to say, I'm so enjoying this stream. Thanks for being awesome and having a cool community. Well, I'm glad you could be here. Thank you very much. We're a good bunch, I think. We're a good bunch. Oh, but David, you think that all recent Star Trek is quasi-fascist and deeply regressive and full of stupid fucking wiki-brained writing. You're not exactly going out on a limb there, are you? Dragonfire Gaming says, chance of Project 2025 being implemented under a non-Trump conservative president. After all, the 900-page doc doesn't specify Trump, just the next conservative president. Oh no, I think any Republican president would want to implement most, if not all, of that. I don't think that's unique to Trump. Yeah. Nick Soapdish, yeah, I the same. I'm with you. Says, I'm so tired of chuds crapping on Rachel Ziegler for no reason. No, I agree. She's a fine actress, and I'm sure she'd make a good Snow White in an otherwise good Snow White movie. So there, yeah, it's just, it's the usual bullshit, the usual fucking culture war, anti-woke bullshit. Some Random Geek says, what upcoming movie are you excited to see, if any? I'm kind of looking forward to the Robert Eggers Nosferatu. That might be the next movie I see in the theater. Bronwyn Driver says, regarding Superman, I have questions. How strong must a condom be for him to have sex safely? And how many incidents must have occurred during his teenage years? Well, I mean, that's a perfect example of the kind of experimentation that he would have to engage in the Fortress of Solitude, which is the only place on Earth where he could truly have the privacy to do that. He would have to test condoms from different materials, maybe some kind of kryptonite irradiated condom, like not enough to seriously weaken him, but enough to, make it like a safe procedure for his human partner. And that's something that would just have to be trial and error, my assumption is that there were no accidents with other people when Clark was a teenager. Like I don't think there's any incident where he had to cover up the death of a girl in his class because he accidentally blew the back of her head off when he was getting his first blowjob. I think he was probably, he was exploring his sexuality as most people in their adolescence do. And he busted his first nut, by hand on his own. And he blew a hole in the wall, maybe blew a hole in his ceiling, and had to think fast and explain to his parents what that was, or maybe not. Maybe he got caught. Maybe his dad came in and knew exactly what had happened, like right away. But once he realized what the situation was and how fast that shit was coming out of there and how dangerous it was to anyone who was, in the target zone, then he, as Superman does, he behaved with a great deal of responsibility, and he didn't take on another human partner until he had had a chance to conduct the aforementioned experimentation in the Fortress of Solitude. $255 AD says, would you rather be a hamster or a dolphin in your next life? No. But Jason, no, that's what I'm saying. You say Superman has super control. If he can shake a human hand, he can control his ejaculate. Ejaculating is not a voluntary thing. You control, humans can control how hard they shake someone's hand. You can't control how fast your fucking jizz comes out. It just happens how it happens. So why would Superman be able to control it? Again, unless, as I said, there is a specific additional superpower that he has that allows him to do that. David says, so Steve, if Superman cannot come safely, then how the fuck does he not blow his cover every time he sneezes, dude? He has to be able to control that kind of function. Why would Superman ever sneeze? He would never sneeze. He's Superman. Checkmate. He never sneezes. He does presumably jizz every once in a while. He never sneezes. You think you throw some pepper in Clark Kent's face and he's going to involuntarily sneeze? Fuck you. Kara Hughes says too much information. Okay, but about Superman. Look, come on. You don't want to talk about, we don't like hearing talk about Superman? John Byrne says, does the future HBO Spielberg Napoleon series interest you? No. I mean, if it comes out and I hear it's really good, I might check it out, but no, it doesn't carry any inherent interest for me. Dragonfire Gaming says the whole Superman condom thing got me thinking Soups had to at least once have been watching Kryptonian porn on his laptop while testing an experimental condom. Well, yeah, you think, I mean, Jor-El probably didn't have a chance to clear his browser history before he sent him off in the rocket because Krypton was, disintegrating. So all of Jor-El's, browser history was imported onto the spaceship and then became a part of the Fortress of Solitude. So when Clark grew up and discovered the fortress and was looking around, he probably found all of his dad's old porn. And that's what he used to, facilitate his condom experiments. Kirok, I know how to play chess, but I don't play it actively. I haven't played it against anyone for years, but I've played before. I know how to play. I'm not what I would call good, although I've always been better at chess than checkers. I'm a really bad checkers player. Like, I can't remember the last time I won a checkers game. I may have never won a checkers game in my life, but I know I've won at least a couple of chess games. Steve Schmeling says, I've never been so relieved to not be eating rice pudding in my life. All right, Jason, fair point. If you're writing a Superman story and you decide to include in the story that he can control his jizz velocity, fair enough. He's a fictional character. I'm just saying, all other things being equal. And also, I just think it's just a lot more fun to imagine that he has this thing he has to deal with. Like, it's okay. Oh, he could. There's no fun there. Oh, don't worry. He can control his jizz. Oh, okay. Never mind. Like, isn't it more fun to think about Superman having to worry about this every day of his life? He never knows. What if he loses control and he fucking kills somebody with a blob of semen just like flashing through their body, just tearing through their flesh and bone at supersonic speed? Like, that's a terrible burden to have to carry around. And yet somehow he carries that burden and he still manages to be an inspiring, friendly, benevolent person. Like, that's a hero to me. That's a hero to me. But no, never mind. Let's just write it off. Let's just take care of it with a little flick of the pen. No, he can control his jizz. All right, then, never mind. Couple more super chats here. Jay Lord, thank you very much for the super chat, says, how do you respond to gamers who say, I'm not anti-woke, I want more racial diversity in entertainment, but don't you dare unhot the women? Well, I don't respond to them because they aren't serious people and they don't deserve to be paid attention to. Kurok 2011 says, I too suck at checkers, but I'm good at chess, always looking to find a good challenge. Well, I doubt I would be much of a challenge. That's true, Knit and Crochet Tiger. He could get, yes, there are Kryptonian colonies that have been mentioned in various comics and stuff where he could get fresh Kryptonian. And you know what else? I bet Bottle City of Kandor, they're probably fucking like crazy in that thing. There's probably a robust pornographic tape trade in the Bottle City of Kandor. Okay, well, John Burns, there you go. John says in another super chat, thank you very much. Okay, so we get Superman to jizz on planets. We don't need to cool the Earth. Okay, yeah, he could maybe jizz up into the atmosphere, and eventually his sperm would accumulate to such a degree that that would create the reflecting effect and would lower the temperature. And her grave said R.I.P. Lois Lane, death by super jizz, says Dragonfire Gaming. Yeah, and it would be carved by Superman's heat vision. Professor Yowie says, I think it would be really funny to piss off reactionaries by referring to the white versions of superheroes by saying, look, it's the white Spider-Man Superman. Yeah, that I agree. That's really funny. That's really funny. Kirok 2011 says, how do you know Kryptonians jizz? Because Superman and Lois have had kids in multiple versions of the characters. How are you going to make a baby without some jizz? They call it baby batter for a reason. Superman, I mean, Kryptonians have kids. Ergo, Kryptonians bust nuts. They blow loads. That's Jason says, why don't Superman just fill up the bottle city of Kandor with his jizz? Exactly. And it wouldn't take very long because it comes out so fast. See, now we're communicating. Maybe that's how Superman finally gets rid of the bottle city of Kandor. Maybe he comes home to the fortress. He's had a bad day. Lex Luthor is fucking his shit up. He just had to fight Brainiac. And then he comes back to the fortress. And what's sitting on his fucking end table but the bottle city of Kandor, the ultimate reminder of what a fucking just annoyance that Brainiac is. An entire city shrunken by Brainiac. And Superman can't figure out how to rebig it. So what does he do? He says, I'm sick of having this fucking city under a bottle in my fortress. Fuck this place. Fuck this city. Fuck all the people that live here. And he opens up the little top of the glass bottle, which I'm just going to say is there so he can reach inside. And he just starts whacking it. Supersonic speed. Before you know it, full of jizz. All the little tiny Kryptonians are drowned. Puts the lid back on. Flies up into space. Flings it into the sun. Nobody even knows. Nobody even knows the difference. He gets one of those models from DC Direct and he puts it in the fortress. So if anybody visits, they won't notice that the bottle city of Kandor is gone and start asking a bunch of nosy questions. Oh, Steve Schmeling says, since we're all in on this, who's got a more powerful money shot, Superman or He-Man? I gotta say Superman. I don't think He-Man is as strong as Superman. I think if He-Man and Superman were to arm wrestle, I think Superman would probably win. And I think if you were to measure, like the muzzle velocity of their penises, I think that Superman's would be faster as well. Jason, you realize we are turning Superman into Homelander. Did Homelander drown tiny people with his jizz? He wouldn't. I'm not saying, look, he would do that after a bad day. That's not how Superman is on a consistent basis. I'm saying he comes back to the fortress after having a really rough day. Chris Riker has a good suggestion. The tiny Kryptonians will ride the spermatozoa, which will roar. I like that too. That's a different direction you could take it. Kirok, see, yes, in Superman Returns, yeah, that is a sequel to Superman 2, where he has sex with Lois when he's in human form, and that's where the Jason, the child in Superman Returns, came from. So that's, yeah, there, no further explanation needed there. That was not an artificial insemination. That was Superman in a temporarily human form conceiving a child with another human in the usual way, in a giant silver beanbag chair, the usual way. Oh, John, I don't know. You mean in an arm wrestling contest? What about Superman versus Sly Stallone after Stallone turns his hat around? Yeah, I mean, if it's the end of the movie, I think Sly might do it. Like if it's the last arm wrestling contest, I think that might be. I think Sly might have to take that one. You versus me says, why are we not praising the structural robustness of Lois's uterus? Because she's just a human. She's just a human being. It's not a knock on Lois. It's not a, there's nothing wrong with Lois, but she is what she is. She's a human being. She can't withstand, you know, what Superman's got going on down there. Nobody could. No human could. Jason, you just don't like Superman Returns. That's your problem. And you're taking it out on that poor child with an allergy who you call a freak. That poor child who saved his mother's life by throwing a piano at a guy. I just picture those poor Kandorians fighting giant indestructible sperm. Oh, God, I wish somebody would make this movie. Or that this would be an episode of Superman and Lois before it goes off the air. I don't think there's going to be time. They've only got 10 episodes this season, and I feel like there's just not going to be room for a wacky Bottle City of Kandor episode where the Kandorians are fighting Superman's gigantic sperm. My Adventures with Superman does air on Adult Swim. I mean, it seems like it's aimed at a younger audience, but I'm just saying, like, if they wanted to really go for the Adult Swim thing, like they could do that as an episode of My Adventures with Superman, and I'm sure it would be fucking delightful. Jason says, I hope Jason mutated into Bizarro Superman and Superman had to banish him. Well, that can be your headcanon. Betty Veronica says, I would ask your opinion on the new Planet of the Apes movies, but I worry y'all would talk about simian jizz versus Homo sapiens. No, that's gross. I would never. Why would that's gross? I don't talk about gross things. I'm not gonna. That's bestiality. I'm not gonna talk about ape jizz. That's like some deviant, gross, perverted. No, I talk about clean, wholesome stuff like Superman's jizz and how fast it comes out of the tip of his penis. That not Planet of the Apes. That's gross. Although I will say I really like those movies. The new Planet of the Apes movies, the current Planet of the Apes franchise. I've liked all of those movies so far. I think it's quite good. John Burns says, Steve, check out Murder in a Small Town. Good show. I think I've heard of that. I will try to check that out if I get a chance. Isaiah says, do you like Jeopardy? Yes, but I haven't watched it for years. But I used to watch Jeopardy like habitually. Yeah, I love Jeopardy, but I have not. I mean, obviously, I don't love it enough to watch it nowadays. But yes, historically, I like Jeopardy a lot. Me and baby, no kill baby. Yeah. Okay. Time to end the show. So I'm going to do my customary wrap up, and then I will come back to the live chat to catch up on any final questions or super chats. And then we will end this absolutely delightful stream where we talked about the velocity of Superman's ejaculation far more than I expected we would, but that's what made it such a great show. So if you enjoy what I do here on YouTube and you would like to help me continue to do it, you can support this channel in a couple of ways. You can become a patron by going to patreon.com/Steve Shives, or you can become a channel member by clicking the join button right here on the YouTube page. Either way, it helps me out to continue to do this, to pay the bills and to make more videos. For support of any level on either one of those two platforms, whether you become a patron on Patreon or you become a member here on YouTube, at any level that you support me, one of the benefits is that you get to submit questions ahead of time for these Ask Away live streams. And you also get the potential to join me at the end of every month for the patron and member hangouts that we do on the last Sunday of every month. We have another one coming up in a few weeks. But yeah, that's for being a patron or a member. Patreon.com/Steve Shives, or click the join button. Also, don't forget, if you enjoy the YouTube stuff, you may also enjoy the podcasts that I am a part of. They are also a part of the Let Me Listen family of podcasts. Yes, Jason, or you can throw cash out a window and scream, Steve! And some other asshole named Steve will get it. Don't do that. Just send it directly to me. Anyway, Let Me Listen podcast. I'm on two of them. Late Seating, the movie review podcast that I am on, along with the brilliant Jason Harding, a.k.a. Opinion Bill, who is in the live chat right now. It's Jason and I reviewing classic films and seeing if they live up to their reputation, whether it's good or bad. Our current episode is the first of our 2 annual Halloween shows, and this one is our review of the horror comedy classic What We Do in the Shadows. And it was a really fun show, and if you haven't listened to it yet, I think you should, because you will really like it. And also, in addition to Late Seating, I am also a part of the cast of the Ensign's Log, the Star Trek themed comedy podcast. It's myself alongside, of course, the brilliant Jason Harding, as well as DanaCole, and Ananda, our newest cast member, who will be joining us regularly, or at least semi-regularly, for the future. So now there's 4 of us. There were just 3 of us. Originally, there were just 2 of us. That's how adding things works, I guess. Anyway, the Ensign's Log, Star Trek-themed comedy podcast. We play original characters who are currently living on Deep Space Nine, circa season 2 right now of Deep Space Nine, and we have our own stories and our own shenanigans that we get into while the events of the actual Deep Space Nine show are kind of happening in the background. It's a really fun show to make. Hopefully it's a fun show to listen to. I think it is for those of you who are regular listeners. If you are not a regular listener, I highly recommend you check it out, especially if you like my Star Trek stuff and the more humorous Star Trek stuff that I do. The Ensign's Log might be right up your alley, so check it out. Listen podcasts, links are in the description. Also, don't forget, if you have a few extra bucks lying around and you would like to help out someone in need, charitylinks.page, which is maintained by our friend Some Random Geek, and contains a lot of PayPal links and GoFundMe links and various other funding links for people who need a helping hand. And Geek has also shared a lot of those individual links in the live chat, as he always does. So please help out some friends of ours who need a helping hand if you can. And now let me turn back to the live chat for one final look and see what I have missed. Let me see. One last super chat from Kirok. Thank you very much. Says, I have to know, since you are now the second person I know that really enjoys the new Planet of the Apes, which do you like better, the old or the new? As a series, I think the new is better, or at least the quality of the new is more consistent. But I still enjoy the original, like the original Rod Serling scripted Planet of the Apes. Like I still think that's my favorite. But the new series, like the quality is really consistent. Like they've all been good from the very first one. So I would say on that score, I would give the edge to the new one. Yes, Geek. For now, I'm on the Ensign's Log. I'm being moved off to the side. Kevin Albin says, this all sounds like nerd stuff. I love it. Yeah, pretty much. Michael Superpacker says, could you see someone else play the role of Picard as a young Picard, maybe before the TNG days? Have you enjoyed Chris Pine's version of Kirk? And what about a Kelvin TNG film series? Yes, I think someone else could play Picard for sure. I don't have anyone specific in mind, but yes, there's nothing in theory that would preclude it. I love Chris Pine's version of Kirk. And I mean, I'm kind of surprised somebody hasn't attempted a Kelvin TNG yet. I'm surprised we haven't heard whispers of it to this point. I don't know if it would be any good or not because it doesn't exist yet, but I mean, it wouldn't shock me if somebody would try it eventually. Brian Baker says, thank you, Jiz L, for your answers. Read the article called Faster Than a Speeding Bullet by Isaac Asimov. Thank you very much. And one last super chat from I says, in recent media, what's an example of cringe woke pandering to you, if such a thing exists? I mean, I'm sure there's something, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I mean, there are examples of trying to do the right thing in the wrong way or doing it in a really disingenuous way that is just pandering. But nothing jumps out at me right away. It doesn't happen nearly as often as people who are critics of quote unquote woke stuff like to say. Yeah. All right. I believe that's it. JFHK says, love your videos, man. Thank you very much. What a nice compliment. All right. That's it, everybody. I'm calling it a night. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for all the super chats and member messages. Thank you for all the questions. Thank you for hanging out and being here and making this possible. I appreciate you. Have a good night. Have a good weekend. And I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.